Today is Tuesday, May 27th. We're talking about President Trump saluting to America's fallen while also airing some grievances. Also, how the president is changing his tone after Russia's latest attack on Ukraine, and why America's Homeland Security Secretary is now in the Middle East. Plus, who's the latest public figure to receive a presidential pardon, why big-time crypto investors are taking their digital wallets offline, and how longtime rivals came together to honor one of their own. Those stories and even more news coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Trump led Americans in honoring fallen service members and their families on Memorial Day. He spoke about their sacrifice, saying, quote, "Their valor gave us the freest, greatest, and most noble republic ever to exist on the face of the earth." Trump also criticized the Biden administration and praised members of his own. The president also promoted an upcoming military parade set to mark the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, as well as the next World Cup and Olympics. Earlier in the weekend, Trump gave a separate rally-style commencement speech at the prestigious West Point Military Academy. There, Trump said as president, he had rebuilt the military and rid it of what he called social experiments. For example, diversity and inclusion efforts and support for transgender service members. The president also criticized NATO allies for not spending more on defense. And in a moment that's been shared widely online, Trump told West Point graduates to avoid, quote, trophy wives. Overall, Trump did spend a lot of the speech congratulating cadets for their accomplishments and career choice, saying they're becoming officers in, quote, the greatest and most powerful army the world has ever known. Russia launched the largest ever drone and missile attack on Ukraine, specifically defying President Trump's calls to end the violence. Ukraine scrambled to defend itself, but more than a dozen people were still killed. In response, President Trump put out a social media post about Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying, quote, he has gone absolutely crazy. But Trump also said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is, quote, doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. The Russian president's spokesperson called Trump's criticism an emotional reaction, whereas the Ukrainian president denounced yesterday's attacks and called for new economic sanctions against Russia. Efforts to actually end the war seem to have reached an impasse, but negotiations did result in prisoners of war being released from both Russia and Ukraine. They started arriving home over the weekend. Over in the Middle East, attacks are also continuing in Gaza. Dozens of people were killed yesterday, most of them at a school building. It was being used as a shelter for displaced families. But the Israeli military says a terrorist command and control center was also there, in apparently another example of Hamas using Palestinians as human shields. Overall, Israel says it hit 200 targets across Gaza in 48 hours. Meanwhile, the U.S. is also trying to help with mediation and humanitarian aid. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem spent the last couple of days in Israel, meeting with top officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They say her visit is proof Israel and the U.S. still have a strong relationship, even as there are reportedly disagreements between Trump and Netanyahu over how to handle Iran and its proxies. Trump's recent talks with Iranian leaders apparently came up at meetings with Noem, who told Israel it's important to, quote, stay united and let this process play out. Meanwhile, on social media, Trump said he thinks he has good news about Iran and he'll be ready to share it in the next few days. So stay tuned. The U.S. Justice Department has reached a deal with Boeing. And with that, the aircraft maker will not be prosecuted over two plane crashes that killed 346 people in 2018 and 2019 in Indonesia and Ethiopia. Victims' family members have been pressing for a public trial for years. The trial was finally supposed to start next month, but not anymore. The new agreement says Boeing instead has to pay or invest more than $1.1 billion. It will be split up between the criminal fine, a fund for crash victims' families, and compliance, safety, and quality programs. The DOJ says the agreement is fair and serves the public interest, and some families apparently support it. Others still want to see a trial, though, and are hoping to convince the court to reject the deal. To be continued. The European Union was due to face a 50% tariff next week, but now President Trump says he's pushing back that deadline. Originally, he threatened the tariffs as punishment for discussions not moving forward, and the EU has been preparing retaliatory tariffs on $95 billion worth of American products, including cars and bourbon. The Europeans have complained that it's not clear what the U.S. wants or even who speaks for the Trump administration. On the other side, the U.S. says the EU unfairly targets American companies with lawsuits and regulations. But now the two sides are apparently in what's been described as constant contact, and stocks have climbed on word of the world powers finding at least some common ground. More news ahead in just a minute, but first, thanks to our sponsor, OneSkin. If you don't already know, my go-to skincare is now OneSkin. I love the feel of all their products on my skin, and I feel like it's the most efficient way to get results. Between work, kids, errands, and everything else, a 10-step skincare routine is not my priority. But with OneSkin, I know I'm still getting everything I need and deserve for my skin. Their products are multitaskers, hydrating, protecting, and supporting my skin's long-term health thanks to their OS1 peptide. It targets the cells that accelerate the visible signs of aging, like wrinkles, thinning skin, and dull complexion. OneSkin supports the skin at a deeper level, so even if I'm running on fumes, I know my skin is still getting the best. I've even been taking their moisturizers and sunscreens with me to travel because they're exactly what I need every day, no matter what. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using my code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Again, get 15% off at oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Give your skin the scientifically proven, gentle care it deserves with OneSkin. Now, back to the news. It's being called a watershed moment for nuclear power in the U.S. President Trump signed 4 executive orders to speed up nuclear power plant construction. And with that, he set a goal of quadrupling the size of the nation's fleet of nuclear power plants. One order tells the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to streamline its rules and take no more than 18 months to approve applications for new reactors. It also tells the agency to at least consider lowering its safety limits for radiation exposure. Another order tells the Energy and Defense Departments to explore putting reactors on federal lands and military bases. That way, they'll be able to bypass the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and develop their own faster processes for approving reactors. The others are about coming up with a plan to build up American supplies of nuclear fuels and making resources available for restarting nuclear plants that have shut down and building new reactors. There is some concern about safety and nuclear waste disposal, but overall, nuclear power tends to get bipartisan support. A former sheriff convicted in what's known as a cash for badges scheme was set to begin a 10-year prison sentence today. Instead, he got an unconditional pardon from President Trump. Prosecutors accuse Virginia Sheriff Scott Jenkins of accepting more than $75,000 in bribes. They say in exchange, he appointed wealthy businessmen as deputy sheriffs, even though none of them were trained or vetted and didn't offer any legitimate services to the sheriff's department. They apparently just wanted badges so they could avoid traffic tickets and carry concealed weapons without a permit. The now former sheriff was caught in part because he accepted bribes from 2 undercover FBI agents and rewarded them with positions too. Late last year, a jury found Jenkins guilty. But Trump called him a, quote, wonderful person who was persecuted by the radical left monsters and left for dead. Jenkins was a sheriff for 12 years, but was voted out of office after his indictment. So far, no comment from Jenkins about the pardon. A crypto investor is now being charged with kidnapping and torturing a man, all in an attempt to get his Bitcoin password. Authorities say he captured an Italian tourist and kept him for weeks in a luxurious townhouse in downtown Manhattan. But the man managed to escape and tell police he was threatened, tied up, beaten, shocked, and otherwise tortured. Investigators say Polaroid pictures at the scene show it happening. The man was taken to the hospital, but at this point, no word on his condition. The suspect is now being held without bond. This all comes following a string of attacks against high-ranking crypto executives in the U.S. and elsewhere, in which victims and their families have been kidnapped or assaulted for ransom. Now, many investors are taking their digital wallets offline for safety. Singer-songwriter Billy Joel has canceled all upcoming concerts, including a stadium tour, because of a brain disorder. A statement posted on his social media says the condition has been exacerbated by recent performances, so Joel has been having issues with his hearing, vision, and balance. He's now going through physical therapy and taking a break from shows. Fans who already bought tickets will get automatic refunds. The disease is a rare condition that happens when excess cerebral spinal fluid builds up in the brain. If it's diagnosed early enough, it can be treated with surgery, but in later stages, some of the effects can become irreversible. For now, his wife, Alexis Roderick Joel, says, quote, we are hopeful for his recovery. And his ex-wife, Christy Brinkley, wrote, please take good care of yourself. We all want you back in that white-hot spotlight. You're our piano man. They're known as the Big Four. They're some of the most dominant tennis players in history. And earlier this week, they reunited to celebrate one of them retiring. Rafael Nadal was honored at the French Open with the help of Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, and Andy Murray. Nadal retired at the end of last year after a career that saw him win 22 Grand Slam titles. Now he says he's at peace with his decision and hasn't touched a tennis racket since. Also over the weekend, sports fans watched what's known as the greatest spectacle in racing. Alex Palou won the Indianapolis 500 for the first time in his career. With that, he earned $3.8 million out of a purse that had topped $20 million overall. It was the largest total purse of all time. The purse is split among all the drivers who race in the event and is split depending on a variety of things like where they finish, laps led, and more. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Hiya Health. One easy way that I've found to make sure my kiddo is getting the nutrition he needs is with Hiya's children's vitamins. In fact, even before they became a sponsor, I was giving my son their best-selling children's vitamins and the Hiya probiotics already. Why? Well, most children's vitamins seem basically like candy in disguise, but not Hiya. Hiya has 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. They're instead pediatrician-approved chewables that my son seriously looks forward to having every morning. Plus, I appreciate that every single batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and microbials in a qualified GMP-compliant lab using scientifically validated testing methods. Oh, and if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods. It's a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Yeah, half off. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website, so go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, which country banned time travel in movies? Listen again next Tuesday for the answer and explanation. As for last week's trivia question, what animal has a tongue twice the length of its body? The answer is the chameleon. They keep their tongues folded up like an accordion. Then when they get ready to capture prey, they contract the muscles in their tongues, much like how a human would pull back the string of a bow. The effort is worth it for chameleons, since scientists say they rarely miss. In fact, the last few years, research found chameleon tongues can move faster and with more power than anyone thought. If their tongue were a car, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 1/100th of a second. Well, thank you so much for joining us to get caught up on the news today. You can further support our work here and get access to ad-free episodes by becoming a Newsworthy Insider. You can start your free trial at thenewsworthy.com/insider. And Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to episodes of The Newsworthy ad-free in the Wondery app. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news to know. Until then, have a great day.